Hey, this is Zachlog the Great, and I am here tonight with my friend Nate.
Oh,
And we are joined by Astrid.
Hello.
And we are getting together tonight to talk about Rudyard Kipling's poem, The Female of the Species. And so Nate has volunteered to read that for us tonight. Before we get to that, if you like my channel, if you like what I do, if you'd like to help, support that, you can go to subscribestar.com/Zachlog-the-great, and the link is in the show description. And having said that, Nate has volunteered to read for us tonight, so I'm going to get that poem up on the screen, and we are going to talk about Mr. Kipling over here. Hello? We okay?
tripod malfunction. All right.
So, I wanted to close. Anyway, let me kill this. All right, there we go. So, Nate, when you... What's up?
Can you zoom in for me a little bit?
Yes. Maybe... How's that?
There you go. That's good. All right. The Female of the Species by Rudyard Kipling. When the Himalayan peasant meets the he-bear in his pride, he shouts to scare the monster, who will often turn aside. But the she-bear thus accosted rends the peasant tooth and nail, for the female of the species is more deadly than the male. When Nag, the basking cobra, hears the careless foot of man, he will sometimes wriggle sideways and avoid it if he can. But his mate makes no such motion where she camps beside the trail, for the female of the species is more deadly than the male. Back down, Sean. When the early Jesuit fathers preached to the Hurons and Choctaws, they prayed to be delivered from the vengeance of the squaws. 'Twas the women, not the warriors, turned those stark enthusiasts pale. The female of the species is more deadly than the male. Man's timid heart is bursting with the things he must not say, for the woman that God gave him isn't his to give away. But when hunter meets with husband, each confirms the other's tale. The female of the species is more deadly than the male. Man, a bear in most relations, worm and savage otherwise. Man propounds negotiations, man accepts the compromise. Very rarely will he squarely push the logic of a fact to its ultimate conclusion in unmitigated act. Fear or foolishness impels him, ere he lay the wicked low, to concede some form of trial, even to his fiercest foe. Mirth obscene diverts his danger, or his anger, doubt and pity oft perplex, him dealing with an issue to the scandal of the sex. But woman that God gave him, every fiber of her frame, proves her launch for one sole issue, armed and engined for the same. And to serve that single issue, lest the generations fail, the female of the species must be deadlier than the male. She who faces death by torture for each life beneath her breast may not deal in doubt or pity, must not swerve for fact or jest. There be purely male diversions. Not in these her honor dwells. She, the other law we live by, is that law and nothing else. She can bring no more to living than the powers that make her great, as the mother of the infant and the mistress of the mate. And when babe and man are lacking, and she strides unclaimed to claim her right as femme and barren, her equipment is the same. She is wedded to convictions in default of grosser ties. Her contentions are her children. Heaven help him who denies. He will meet no suave discussion, but the instant, white-hot, wild, wakened female of the species, warring as for spouse and child. Unprovoked and awful charges, even so the she-bear fights. Speech that drips, corrodes, and poisons, even so the cobra bites. Scientific vivisection of one nerve till it is raw, and the victim writhes in anguish, like the Jesuit, the squaw. So it comes that man, the coward, when he gathers to confer with his fellow braves in council, dare not leave a place for her, where, at war with life and conscience, he uplifts his erring hand to some god of abstract justice, which no woman understands. And man knows it, knows moreover that the woman that God gave him must command but may not govern, shall enthrall but not enslave him. And she knows, because she warns him, her instructions, her instincts never fail, that the female of her species is more deadly than the male.
Okay. And stops. Okay, thank you, Nate. So, Astrid, would you like to get us started with some of your thoughts on this one?
If you'd like, sure. I think one of my first things that I noticed was the part about how men will concede some form of trial even to his fiercest foe. And I noticed this is a staple in many stories. It's a critical point. For example, in the Pirates of the Caribbean, when Will Turner first fights Jack Sparrow, Jack throws sand in his eyes, and Will goes, "That's cheating." But Jack Sparrow goes, "Pirate," and that's a very man thing to do. Or a more obvious example is in The Princess Bride, in the first three trials of the Man in Black. His first fight with the Spaniard is this kind of honorable fight. He gives him a chance to get up the ladder, to catch his breath, and best him in combat. And then in the fight with Vizzini, he says, "So you'll put down my rock, and I'll put down my sword, and we'll try to kill each other like civilized people, as men do." I thought that was a good point.
It doesn't always go that way. Well, and since you started with movies, I'm thinking in movies too, which is maybe not the best metric, but I instantly thought in counterpoint of like Indiana Jones, and the guy pulls out a sword and is swirling it all over, and Indiana Jones just looks over and just shoots him and walks away.
That's a good point.
But yeah, I mean, there is this idea that a lot of guys have that, like, we want to have a fair fight. We want to, like, put it to a simple, even test between the two of us, and then sometimes we don't always do that, but there is that ideal. And also, it's I don't know this from personal experience because I haven't seen that much of either, like up close. I have heard people say that, like, two guys fight, and usually they'll arrive at, like, they'll end up arriving at a point where they're like, okay, we've sorted this out. Whereas, like, two girls fight, and, like, basically either one of them is bleeding on the floor or you have to pry them apart, is what I'm told. That girl fights tend to be vicious in a way that guy fights aren't. So that is secondhand from me, not something I've personally been that close to that often. But Nate, how about you?
Oh, I absolutely agree with this sentiment. That's what we were talking about the other day. C.S. Lewis points out that a man is, for his household, he's sort of the outward face. He's got to be sort of like the liaison between everybody else and his home. And so, he tends to have an outlook that's very different from the wife, who is concerned almost entirely with things within her household. She is the ultimate partisan. She's like, she is unconcerned with everyone else. She is concerned with the right and good of her home. And so he's saying, you know, whenever, let's say your son bats a ball over the fence and, you know, breaks a window, or your dog goes in there and tears up something in the garden, and you have to go talk to your neighbor. Would you rather deal with the man of the house, or would you rather deal with the lady of the house? Because the man of the house is probably like, oh, like, well, that's frustrating, but we can come to a deal, you know, it's all right. It's like, we'll get it figured out. Or the lady of the house probably going to be like, why are you being so careless? She's going to have a lot more heat going into that because you damaged her home. And so, yeah, I mean, men, we have to deal in this realm of like, okay, there are constructs beyond us that we have to bend to, and there are concepts that we have to deal with. Now, a lot of women find themselves in here too, ladies. Whatever women still watch this channel, I'm not saying y'all are incapable of that or that you don't deal with that. Modern women do have different, you know, things they have to do. But historically, it's been the men that have to worry about, you know, the sort of codes of honor almost, and the ethical dilemmas that a lot of times, you know, women weren't faced with. And so, you know, the idea is that the law and justice aren't something we always get to take into our own hands, no matter how much we want to. The idea that you got to give somebody a chance to defend their position, even if you know already it's indefensible. You know, we have different builds in our minds and responsibilities, and so it comes out a lot in our behaviors. And so what Sean was saying about girl fights is true. Guys fight for respect. Girls just fight to destroy.
Because they're fighting for different things. As Kipling says in his poem, the woman is warring as for spouse and child. When you're fighting, it's with the same kind of equipment that you'd use to fight for some of the most important things in your life.
Yeah. That's it. And the kind of the idea goes that, you know, the way a woman's built is that if she has to be fighting, something's gone wrong, and it is a really life or death intense situation. And so, yeah, the way she's going to approach a fight is entirely different. It is instantly going to be life and death happening right now.
Well, and it's also, you know, he says it's kind of weird. I've seen when I was, you know, working on learning this poem, I tried looking it up on YouTube, see if anyone else has done it, and I can listen to it and get it that way sometimes. There are several references to it, but not a lot, or possibly any complete renditions on YouTube, or I wasn't able to find them. Possibly Google is burying them because Google has turned from here's the information to here's certain information we want you to know. Different topic. Anyway, but like there's not a lot, like it's not easy to see a complete rendition of this poem, because while like at first it sounds very like modern and girl power, he definitely has like other elements to this that, you know, don't really fit feminism very well. Don't really fit, you know, the modern concept, the modern girl boss. For one thing, well, why are women different? Why are women like this? Well, you see, they have these babies they're trying to take care of and protect, and if something gets them going, it's probably because you're threatening their kids. Okay, but you know, modern women, you know, feminist girl boss isn't supposed to have kids, or if she does, she doesn't care about them that much. And also, like, you know, it gets to the end and it's like, look, guys get together and they try to work things out, and they have councils and they make governance. And I'm sorry, but we shouldn't probably have women there because they don't understand these things we're trying to work out. We're glad they're here. We need them. but this is not their job, which again doesn't really. What's up?
That's man's work. It's, yeah, I mean, the modern era wants to talk about, men and women are the same and it's all just this and that. No, it really isn't. And I've seen it, like, I've had to be the husband kind of standing in the way, being like, honey, calm down. It's okay, let me handle it. Because, yeah, my wife will, get upset about something, and she's like ready to cut somebody to ribbons. I'm like, ooh, hey. Let me get in the middle of this. And she's like, yeah, fine. She's like, yeah, fine. You think about it. I'm just mad. I'm like, we got it going. But I mean, another thing is that, the male of the species, right? The bear turns aside and the cobra kind of gets out of the way and all of that. You probably meet them hunting, and a predator is going to be like, okay, is this trouble worth it? Literally, are you worth the energy right now? And if it's like, no, probably not. This is more dangerous than I want to deal with. They'll let you go. It's not worth getting injured or crippled or killed for something you're not going to eat. Whereas mama bear and, cobra with a clutch of eggs, it's the next generation. It is absolutely worth whatever you have to do. And so just applying that to people is that it leads to a little bit of strain on the point, because definitely women can be logical. Definitely, they can be held by codes of ethics and honor just like men. But I will go ahead and say observationally from the women I've known in my life, all 3 or 4 of them, that's a strain sometimes for them. It doesn't come from quite the same place. So it looks very different.
It was kind of funny when I was making the cover image for my recording of the poem. I was looking around a little bit and I was trying to find like an angry mother bear. I couldn't really find a good image, and so I ended up just going with a bear next to her cubs, like in there beside a river, and it doesn't look like that much. But on the other hand, like if you know anything about going out in the woods, you look at that and you're like, I should get away very, very fast.
The only thing worse than seeing a mother bear with her cubs is seeing just the cubs.
Because she's coming and you don't know which direction, for one thing.
Yeah, just...
But yeah, it's let me see. Let me take a look at this.
I also enjoy how he references he actually references like the curse of Eden. Because one of the things that women are told is like, you will desire to rule over your husband, but he will rule over you. And so, it's like they will enthrall, but they won't enslave. Have to exercise the soft power to have the control you want to have, just as a matter of fact.
Well, yeah, it's let's see. The woman that God gave him must command but may not govern, shall enthrall but not enslave him. And it's like, if things are going to work, there's going to be this weird balance of power between the man and the woman. And like, for one thing, it like inside the home, when it's just like, husband and kids, a lot of the times that is her territory, and you probably should let her run things and have her say. But shall enthrall but not enslave him. She's going. Men. women can entrance men in a way that I don't think many men will do for women. And so, it's a very different, has a very different kind of relationship there. And it is a strange kind of balancing act. And then there's also the thing to stray a little bit from the poem, which we never do. But like,
so weird. I can't believe we're doing this.
But like, there is this strange thing for women, and I think guys have a version of this too. But women, in some sense, kind of want to tame a man. They want to calm him and kind of domesticate him. But if they succeed in doing this too much, they are no longer attracted to him.
That is a staple of the romance genre, yes. Beauty and the Beast stories. Good stories will have the woman tame the man, but he will retain his manliness and whatever made him interesting in the first place.
Yeah, and if she does succeed in domesticating him entirely, the things that drew her to him in the first place are probably gone. And so it's a weird, from the outside, it looks like a weird problem for women. I suspect a lot of women aren't aware of how that can go and how that can affect a relationship. Anyway. Let's see. I
mean, yeah. And going back to what you're saying about, it's her territory, gonna go ahead and expose my, Neanderthal levels here. My wife and kids, like the official home position, and my wife is actually the one that started this, so. But the official statement is, Dad's the king of the house. Dad can do what he wants. And so, I can change up whatever schedule, whatever process, or whatever, and be like, nah, you know what? Not today. Not right now. Let's just do what I want to do. We're going to do everything differently because I said so. I would be a very great fool to do that because my wife is a very, very excellent homemaker. And so her systems work really well. And so it's that balance of power you're talking about. It really is her territory. I own it. If I want to do something with it, I can. But ultimately, I trust her care of it. And so I'm going to mostly go along and be like, hey, darling, what's the thing we're supposed to be doing right now? Very good. All right, let's take care of it. And so, yeah, we have to be able to trust our women. But it kind of makes me laugh a couple of times where Kipling's like, the woman that God gave him, he's forced to keep her. He can't go get a different kind of woman. Like, can we trade this for a slightly less troublesome female? Could we do that? And Lord's like, he is the only one. He is the only help that is meet for you, sir. I'm like, okay, I've got to be better so that I don't, get completely run over here.
Well, there's that reminds me though. There's if I have this right, this comes from like Jewish kind of analysis. Have you heard of the idea of Lilith? Okay, so the idea is that Adam had a wife before Eve, and she ended up leaving him. If I have this right, basically this came from Genesis 1. God created the male and female, and then in Genesis 2, God made a mate for Adam, and so some
beast. Then he created man from the dust of the earth. And then he created a woman from man. He did not create a male and female human and then create a woman from Adam. He created all the animals, male and female, he made them. And then he brought them all to Adam and was like, which one of these is going to be your partner? And Adam was like, well, they're all pretty great, but none of them. And he was like, okay, go to sleep. And then he made woman, the female of our species, which hadn't been made previously. That sounds like the guy, honestly, that reading sounds like the guy that once told me that, and he had just started reading the Bible, and I was blindsided by this one. He said until after the fall, Adam and Eve didn't have skin. Because it says that after they realized they were naked, God killed animals and clothed them with skin. And I'm like, animal skins, you doink. Your reading comprehension is terrible.
Oh,
Please, develop the skills of understanding before you misinterpret all of Scripture.
But anyway, to get back to what I was saying. I actually recently heard. Do you know why Lilith left Adam? She heard he had a girl on the side.
Nice.
I already have a terrible sunburn and am in pain. I don't need more. That's one of my favorite truths about humor is that you know it's a good pun when it physically hurts.
So, let's see. Oh, crud. My computer is...
DP's here, though, and I'd like to see what she has to say some more, because we've kind of been shutting her out a little.
Oh, no, I don't mind. You guys have been saying so many great things. I didn't want to interrupt you. Oh, I had a thought, and now the thought is gone. As it goes. Yes, the woman that God gave him isn't his to give away. That's what you're talking about. I think another point, besides the fact that every man may have his own wife that he can't just give up, is that women are women, and you can't trade out your helpmate for another kind of thing. Women will be women, and you can't wish. Well, you could wish it were different, but it won't be different. And I think you had another point about how you delegate things to your wife, which is all well and good, but you don't delegate you don't abdicate the authority that you have as the head of the household. Some men, I understand, struggle with that.
It's easy sometimes just to be like, meh, it's good to be the king. I'm just going to sit here and not do anything. This is wonderful. And I'm going to be honest, to kind of give you the warts and all perspective. When she first started, with, I'm going to be a submissive wife, I did a terrible job. I was kind of a lazy tyrant, and it wasn't great. But I realized after a while that I was like, I'm not living up to this woman I married. And it actually turned into the deadliest challenge I ever had, was this wow, this is actually something I need to do better. I have an amazing wife, and I'm being kind of a turd.
Age is wise, by the way.
And so I guess that's despite the trouble and just some of the upset that we get from the women that God gave us, we need them to be that challenge. But Astrid was right. We need to be challenged by them, but not overcome. My wife, very quietly and very sincerely, displays the love of God and the work of a servant to me. And I have to work hard to meet that challenge and to be worthy of all that and to live up to the person she thinks I am. Because she is much more impressed with me than I am with myself. And so I have to live up to her now and what she thinks I can do. And it really has led to a lot of growth for me. And honestly, I tell her, I mean, probably enough to get on her nerves, but I tell her that she is a blessing and a mother of blessing, and I would not be who I am now. So, for all her deadliness, she's also a real great boon.
Proverbs has a lot to say about the importance of a good wife. And you can tell by what also isn't, well, it's not always directly said. There are verses like, a good wife is the crown of her husband, but she who brings shame is like rottenness in his bones. Where you can tell how bad a bad wife can be. When it goes bad, it can go really bad.
My brother.
That was there's actually a meme I've seen variations of a few times, and it has like, I forget who some of the men are. Like, probably one of them is like Johnny Depp and Amber Heard, and like Jeff Bezos and his last wife, who divorced him and took enormous amounts of money with her. And it's like, choosing a wife is the most important decision a man is ever going to make in his life. And it's like, yeah. And also,
better to eat a crust. It's better to sit on the corner of a rooftop than to live in a mansion with a quarrelsome woman.
Yep.
Well, and it's let's see. That's not what I wanted. That's what I wanted. Here, I gotta go do something really quick. I'm gonna be right back, guys.
Okay.
Oh dear, his wife's attacking somebody.
Uh-oh.
No, but I guess that's the thing, though. If all the lethality was left to men, it would be an even, to the male of the species, it would be actually less of a good world.
It is not good for man to be alone.
No. And dealing in, force and violence is kind of the masculine position. But I mean, again, if there's a monopoly of force, one side's going to be a slave, not a citizen. And so I'm glad that, the female of the species has got that kind of hitting power, because, sometimes they're evil men, and sometimes you got to shut them down, and sometimes you just don't have any good men around.
And when you're protecting your precious baby, there is no time for mercy or delegation or any of that. It's just, you're hurting my baby. You're going to stop that right now.
If you have to stop everything, that's fine with me.
Well, yeah.
Including breathing.
Forever. I've told my wife a million times, though, I'm like, honey, I try and reinforce that property, because, we've got pistols and rifles around, and I'm kind of like, all right, darling, if somebody comes in the house, what are you going to do? She's like, well, I'm going to get the gun. I'm like, great. She's like, and I'm going to scare them off. And I'm like, no, you're not. I was like, you are going to kill them. You're going to shoot them in the middle of the biggest part of them you can see until they stop being a problem. Now, if they run away, that's great, but it's an accident. So I don't know. Maybe the female of the species in my house isn't quite up to bear levels, but
well, what she says in the abstract and what she does in the moment of action are not necessarily the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure I'd come home and find like you stuck it in them. How? Like, it's behind their ribcage. I'm amazed at this.
He was already down on the floor. You didn't have to reload and come back.
Oh no, I fully support that. I'd be like, you mess with. There are two things in life you don't mess with for me, and that's my wife and my kids. And I'm like, I'm going to come home, find the guy on the floor, and I'm going to unload. They're like, just making sure.
So one interesting thing for me, in like, okay, basically he says a large part of the reason that women are like this, that women are built this way, and that it's a good thing that they are, is that they are responsible for, protecting and, caring for children. And there is this thing, I'm not the only one who said this, in today's world, a lot of women, a lot of them childless, but not all, but a lot of women have it. A particularly nasty aspect of kind of leftist politics is taking this instinct of a woman, taking it from where it belongs, her own kids, and like basically redirecting it onto a designated victim group. These poor people over here, okay? And this is especially easy if she doesn't have kids, because she's still built the same way. She's still built the same way, but there's no proper object, so you direct it to these, you tell them, look at these poor innocent people over here and how they're persecuted for no reason, okay? And like, you tell you explain to a woman that her kid got in a fight. You explain to a dad that his kid got in a fight with another kid, and dad's like, okay, how did this start? And a lot of dads are probably going to try and figure out, by the way, was this your fault? Did you say something you shouldn't have said? Did you take something of his? Whereas the woman's response is much more likely going to be, he's my kid. Obviously, the other kid is the problem. And so, and like, so you take this same instinct, you take this same, natural tendency, and you apply it in entirely inappropriate ways. And suddenly you have, women, again, defending these victim groups with ferocity, and a complete unwillingness to like listen to, well, no, that's happening to this guy because of this. Well, no, he is the poor innocent victim, like my child would be if I hadn't been on birth control for 10 years and had 2 abortions. And it's a very, I think you can look at a lot of modern politics and see this kind of tendency in a lot of places, and it's an ugly thing.
Yeah. Kipling says as much. She is wedded to convictions. Her contentions are her children. When baby men are lacking.
Yeah, and it's it is a
interesting way to kind of flip that around, because like the way he puts it is that the only argument a woman needs is my children. But then when you look at it in the modern way, it comes out the way that you're talking about, Astrid, that it's, her arguments are the things that she loves like children and her position. And so instead of her, children being the argument she makes, now the arguments are the beloved thing.
Okay.
Are her babies. It's actually a really great reading of that. I like that.
It seemed to follow through with the pun, wedded to convictions. Her contentions are our children. Heaven help him who denies her contentions.
It's I do have to say, like, I honestly, I really didn't have a very good read on that, on those couple of lines. Like, she is wedded to convictions in default of grosser ties. I didn't really have a very good sense of that, the meaning of that part. I mean, the next line's pretty obvious. Like, these are my arguments, and by the way, this is, he will meet no suave discussion, but
let us sit down and reason together. Oh, I've been stabbed 19 times. That's A point fairly made 19 times. But no, just this was to my mind, this is just a really, kind of extended and, interesting way to say Mama Bear's no joke.
It is. I don't know what it is about his poems, but one thing I've consistently found with Kipling, he's very easy to memorize. Like, I can get Kipling poems down really quickly, even when this is like 30 or 40 lines long, like this one is. And yeah, he's I think one of the best things about him, like as a poet at least, I haven't read a lot of his stories, but like he can be didactic, he can be instructional, he can be basically like teaching something, getting across a message, but he does it in a very entertaining way. Like he's not like I'm teaching a lesson now, class, listen up. He puts it in a he's very good at spoonful of sugar, kind of makes the medicine go down kind of thing, to refer to another kind of mother figure. But well, I think I've said most of what I wanted to say here. Nate, were there any big things you wanted to cover still, or?
No, not really. Just to kind of go back real quick and highlight the difference between a man and woman's roles, and kind of how to find balance. My wife and I play a lot of video games together. And whenever we're playing together, I tend to be the tank. She tends to be the support. I'm out there in the front of things, dealing with the problems very directly up in my face. She is back behind me, making sure I have what I need to do. And in real life, I'm out here, getting lobster-fied and sweating and getting hit in the face with rocks and nails and whatever else. She is at home laboring to make sure that my home is a welcoming place and it is a place of peace. And so that's really the balance that we need. I love her and I respect what she does and what she can do, and just the skill she has in keeping a peaceful home. And she loves me and respects me for the skill that I have in, going getting really stinky and bringing home bacon. But also, we respect each other's judgment. I'm the king, she's the queen. She's the only queen I ever want. Because while the decision rests on me and I have the authority, I want her input because it's going to be good. The kids know that we're unified. We're not going to split up on something. I was blessed with a rare woman. And I'm hoping that my sons will find such rare women. There are 6 of them. We're taking applications. But, I try and tell them a lot, just kind of point out, hey, you see how your mom's doing that? That's fantastic. You need to find a woman who does that. I'm like, and you need to be the kind of man that a woman like that is going to want. So I need you to do what I'm doing. Most of the time. I'll tell you when it's something you shouldn't be doing. And so, yeah, we're different. We have different roles. We approach life differently. But if we work together, we will be help for each other rather than a hindrance. And that's when life gets really, really beautiful.
Yeah, there's one One other thing to refer to C.S. Lewis again, since we kind of started with that, or very near the beginning. There's a quote, apparently rather commonly misquoted from a letter by C.S. Lewis, and he says, I have to keep this brief. I'm skipping over some things. A housewife's work is surely, in reality, the most important work in the world. That job is the one for which all others exist. Like everything else, we do in order to build a home. And building and keeping a home going. So building and keeping a home going is the most important thing because that's what everything else is for. Well, and I've heard I think Stefan Molyneux talk about this a few times. If you look at what a single guy needs to make in order to keep himself going, and what a husband with a family needs to make, like the difference is enormous. And guys, if it's just us on our own, we can be happy with very little. It doesn't. If a single guy, he has like a mattress. He doesn't even need a bed. Probably a mattress. And these days, a video game console, and and a couple things to keep himself fed in the kitchen, and he's gonna be fine. Whereas women, especially once children are involved, women build a home, and it's a very different thing, and it matters. It matters a lot. And so, anyway, Astrid,
You think a male bird needs a branch. A male bird needs a branch. A female bird needs a nest.
There we go.
So Astrid, how about you? Is there anything else you would like to close us out with tonight?
I'm not really sure. I had one other thought relating to the last line. It's more of a tangential point. The line, she knows because she warns him and her instinct never fail that the female of her species is more deadly than the male. There's a line I see in some internet spaces that goes something like, women understand women and they hate each other. Which has a little bit of truth. There's some truth.
I've operated on that thesis for years.
But it's a rather cynical way of looking at women and looking at the world, because the implication is that when you as a man understand women, you will also hate women, and that is not a reasonable proposition. While there are some truly despicable behaviors that women do, it's not really true that once you understand women, you will also have to hate them. So
I get a different way to approach that point also is one thing I've heard is that the man's challenge is to get a woman. The woman's challenge is to keep the man. So like they did a study one time. There's a like cologne company. They did a study trying to figure out what scents will reliably attract female attention. And so what they did was, they put all kinds of stuff on these guys, flowers and spices and dirt and whatever else. And they're like, no correlation between any scent and female attention, except for one. The one scent they could put on a man that would make women noticeably more attracted to him was the scent of another woman. Because it's been demonstrated. It's like, oh, well, this man has demonstrated he can attract and keep a woman. So I want him because I want to be kept. I want the kind of man that can do that, and he clearly can. So now I've just got to get this skank out of the way. Yeah.
He's also been pre-vetted by other women, so you know that he's
like
a better bet.
Okay, he's already got the clearance. This is perfect. And so I feel like, the whole women understand other women and they hate each other. It's like, yeah, it doesn't mean men are going to hate women. It just means that if we understand them, we're probably going to be horrified, but then continue on as things go because, ultimately we still want them.
Okay. Well, I think we've said as much about Kipling as we're going to say tonight. So, thank you, Astrid, for joining us, and thank you, Nate, and God be with you.
Also,
Thank you for having me.